All right, it's time to move.
Well, I'm just thrilled that we have M.A.S.K fans out there who are still M.A.S.K fans. I sort of thought that the whole thing would die a quiet death as you guys grew up. But I'm amazed to find that there's so many.
You know, something like M.A.S.K was magical, just magical. And it just doesn't happen all the time.
Vanessa, in my mind, drives her own life. One day she may get in an argument with Miles Mayhem and say, "Up your nose, I'm out of here."
MASKast. Computer, scan files. Select M.A.S.K agents best suited for this mission.
Jason Gross, radio broadcaster, retro gamer, blogger, M.A.S.K movie co-writer, vehicle codename 6000, 80s guru skills critical, Wyatt Bloom, broadcast technician, DJ, critic, M.A.S.K movie co-writer, vehicle codename Phoenix, 80s analysis vital.
Personnel approved. Assemble Mobile Armored Strike Command.
Welcome, faithful MASKast listeners, to MASKast number 53, and a special treat for you, veering off of the episode reviews for a minute to get another voice actor, actually two actors on the line tonight. It was such a great experience, Wyatt. I'm sure not what to say at this point.
Right, and that's what we said it in the interview, and even back on Doug's, where, 30 years ago, when we were 9 or 10, we wouldn't have even fathomed being able to talk to any of the voice actors. And now, fast forward, we've been able to talk to Doug. We've actually now been able to meet with Doug and then sit with him on a panel at RetroCon 2015. And now, thanks to your salesman-like approach, we've now not got one, but two in one interview, Brandan McKane and Sharon Noble. And granted, we knew that they were a couple, but
it was a real surprise. It was a
pleasant surprise to be able to talk to both of them. They took their turns, and basically we honored their time because Brennan had something afterwards, so he basically took the mic first, and then it went on to Sharon, which oh man, it was a treat really for both of them.
Yeah, and if you've been on our Facebook page, you've seen Sharon chime in from a time or two, comment. She'll like some posts. The same with some of the other voice actors. Like I've seen Mark Halloran chime in on a few things on some of the M.A.S.K Facebook pages and such. And it just started from there. It was knowing that Doug was on Facebook, reaching out to him, and the same with Sharon. I just sent her a quick message and a Facebook friend request. Hey, this is Jason from Agents of M.A.S.K. And, we'd host this podcast, and it just kind of went from there. She said she'd love to do it, and I hadn't heard from her in a while. And then all of a sudden, I get a message just a couple days ago, and she said, here's some available times. And her being on the West Coast and us on the East Coast, we tried to find a happy medium in there to meet with her. And then after I connected on Skype, she said, "Oh, and by the way, Brendan will be available to chat some as well." So I was like, "Wow, we get Miles Mayhem and Vanessa in one podcast."
Right.
So it's been a real treat talking to her, talking to Brendan, and just being able to get more insight into the show, how it was produced. The lifelong friendships that were made by the actors through the show.
Right, and they're still friends to this day, where they're going out for, as Brendan said, for tea, or they'll come over for Thanksgiving dinners. It's fascinating that they've kept that connection And it did start with M.A.S.K. We joke about it, how the community kind of has evolved, exploded, I would say, of late within the last 5 years, maybe more.
Mm-hmm.
But it was still a connection with them, these voice actors who sat in a studio, and you'll hear the story from Sharon, I think, mostly, how they sat around and would do their lines and then be joking around inside the headsets. It was just, and now they're still spitting out lines to this day whenever they meet, and you'll hear that on this recording, this podcast. And it's like we've both indicated, especially on this one, it's just really surreal and humbling that we were able to get to talk with our voice actors, the characters, the people that voiced our favorite characters from M.A.S.K. I'm going to be beaming for another freaking... I'm still kind of on the beam from RetroCon.
Well, I found it a very telling experience too, just how open she was to give tips about writing.
Yeah.
She pretty much gave us a full
course,
a college lecture
right.
on writing novels, just to sit down and to take the time to do that. And you can tell she's passionate about it, passionate about her work in general, but hearing from us and the novice writers that we are, and to be able to give tips to us and to whoever's listening, I thought that was just really cool. And like you said, I mean, yeah, we're on an all-time high here, all-time M.A.S.K high in the last couple of months, meeting Doug and now virtually meeting Sharon and Brandan. So we thank obviously them for taking the time. We hope you guys will enjoy the interview. Hopefully we'll get more of the cast before too long, and we'll see if we can get you some more insight into the show. But it was a real treat. They both essentially talked our ears off without much direction. We had a laundry list of questions to ask, and we did get to some listener questions that we sent out with the newsletter that for the people that replied back to ask Sharon. We didn't know that Brandan was going to be also participating at the time, so we didn't say anything about him tagging along in the newsletter. But it was just a real fun experience, and we really hope you guys will enjoy it. So shall we give them what they came for?
Yes, and I want to echo it one last time before we send it off. Thank you very much, Brennan. Thank you very much, Sharon, for taking the time out of your schedules to sit down with us, virtually anyway, and allow us to start the MASKast.
Hello, listeners. This is Jason, and on the line with me is my pal Wyatt. How are you doing tonight, Wyatt?
I'm swell. How are you?
I'm doing great. We have a very special surprise tonight for everybody that listens to MASKast. We are very pleased to welcome a television and film and voice actor. Our listeners will know him as the ruthless leader of Venom, Miles Mayhem, and he also portrayed Venom agent Floyd Malloy and M.A.S.K agents Alex Sector, Jacques LaFleur, and Nevada Rushmore on the M.A.S.K animated series. Please welcome to MASKast, Brandan McKane. How are you tonight, sir?
Well, I'm just fine. I don't know who's talking at the moment, whether it's Alex or Miles or Floyd.
Several guests are on the line tonight, the party line.
It's very schizophrenic, right?
Well, we certainly appreciate you joining us, and your lovely wife a little bit later on, but we're very grateful for you taking the time to answer a few of our questions, and we actually have some listener questions as well that were sent in, a few of those. But I guess if you would, just tell us a little bit about where you're from and how you got into acting and so forth.
Well, I'm happy to answer that question, but you have to understand, that's probably the most dangerous question you can ask, because if I start with, well, it all started in a small village, you know that you're in trouble, right? But to truncate it for you, I'm from Canada, and I became an actor at 19. I worked in the theater in Canada, in Victoria, British Columbia, Vancouver, Toronto, Calgary, doing all sorts of different styles of theater, including musicals, dramas, Shakespeare, all the rest of it. And I guess the only really interesting part, the part that I would find interesting, is that I always wanted to be an American. And as it happened, in one of the productions of plays I was doing in Canada, so was Sharon Noble, my wife. And as it happens, she was an American. And so I thought, there's my opportunity. And it's not that I loved her, it's that she was American. She carried American papers. And, well, I did grow fond of her over time. So we got together, and we both returned, or she returned to the United States, and I followed. And I guess the funnest is, I don't know if that's a word, the funnest part of this story is that both Sharon and I, we had arrived in California. We were on a beach in Santa Monica. I think it was November. And of course, for Californians, that's really cold. But for us, it was extremely warm. And as it happened, we were with some other friends who were also actors. And one of them said, oh, by the way, there's this company, and they're looking for Canadian actors to do voiceover work. And our ears perked up, and we got the name of that person. And we went and met with these people. And they were, of course, DiC Enterprises. And their needs were very, very specific. They needed Canadian actors who were members of the Canadian Union, who were not members of the American Union. And of course, most Americans wouldn't fit that profile.
Right.
So, fortunately for us, we did. And that's how we came into contact with DiC Enterprises. And we, of course, auditioned several times. And we're very fortunate in being chosen. And the great thing for Sharon and I was that it's a double header. We were married, so all the money goes into one bank account. So that's the short, truncated version of how we got from the beginning of desire to be actors to arriving at DiC's doorstep.
That's great.
Yeah.
Did it start, I guess, once you hit California, did you start with M.A.S.K, or was there a venture prior to that?
No, there was no previous venture because we had been in California for 2 weeks.
Okay.
For this to occur, this is what every child in Nebraska and the rest of the country dreams about, that they would come to the land of movie making and somehow find their way into the business. Now, of course, Sharon and I came with extensive resumes, but the other part of the story is magical because, in fact, we were here only for 2 weeks. We were having meetings with some of the largest and most important agents in town, but they didn't direct us to this opportunity. Our inadvertent meeting on the beach in Santa Monica is what led us to DiC. So there was no previous work.
I see. Was there was there an audition process, or was it like, hey, we love what you're doing, or we
Well, we first of all we met with the producers. They made sure that we met all the criteria, in as much as we were Canadians. We belonged to the Canadian Union, and we did not belong to SAG.
Right.
And of course, just parenthetically, we were virtually on the doorstep of joining SAG, and we held off because of this opportunity. So once that occurred, the audition process started, and it's I have to confess, I don't recall everything. I recall that we were given scripts. We were given some description of the characters, and I think, and Sharon can correct me, I remember preparing for several days, because this was a massive opportunity, and we were going to get one bite at the apple. So I think I was preparing for Miles Mayhem. And, I'm not a particularly large man. I'm also not tiny. But Miles Mayhem, as you well know, has a very big presence, a very bass voice. My natural voice is not particularly bass. My voice has a certain lightness to it, and so I had to work very hard to come up with some bass and some heavy weight, which I did. And of course, Sharon is also doing this at the same time, with the various characters that she would be auditioning for. So after some substantial preparation, we went in. And as I recall, they didn't make any decision. And I believe we had to come back and do it again. What typically happens in circumstances like this, this is a cartoon series, so everybody wants to be part of this. So I don't know exactly how many people were auditioning, but I know we were called back, and I recognized that was good. And then, lo and behold, word came down that not only was I chosen, but Sharon was chosen. I mean, the likelihood of that is slim to none.
Right.
The odds. So there you are, and we really didn't know what that meant, except we were going to do this cartoon series, but what am I trying to say? I think there was anxiety that it could end at any moment.
Right.
You go into your first studio session and you do it, and all the powers that be, who are spending a substantial amount of money, may not like you. And so your happy Santa Monica Beach surprise could come to a thundering end quickly. However, that was not the case, and there we were 2 weeks into the country, and before we knew it, we were scheduling recording sessions and doing the performances.
That's pretty wild how quickly that happened like that. And I guess a follow-up question for me would be, how was the transition? Because this was your first voice acting job, correct?
Well, in fairness to myself and to Sharon, our history in the theater was varied, wide and varied. So I had played all sorts of characters that were many times my age, and so I had a certain amount of experience, a substantial amount of acting experience. So I was not nervous about acting, and I had a measurable, definable skill. That's not to say that they would like it. So the new part of it was going into a studio, and the approach that Deke took, as I recall, is that we had the script, and in the studio, just like you are there with your headphone on, all the actors are on a soundstage, and there could be 4 or 5 of us, whatever it is, and we had the script, and we had a director. Her name is Marcia Goodman, and we would go through the script and do the voices, and she would direct us and make suggestions, or corrections, or slight change of direction. And what we didn't have, which is my point, is that we didn't have the visual. That is critical, because it allowed us the freedom. I think Sharon's going to interrupt me.
Yes, we did.
Oh, we did. We did have the visual.
Storyboards from Japan.
Oh, storyboards.
Mm-hmm.
But
okay.
Storyboards, of course, are different than the animation playing in front of you on a screen. Right. And when you have you have a script, and the line is it's Miles Mayhem, and he's saying, all right, it's time to move. If you have the visual on the screen, you have to match the visual's mouth.
Right.
And that's a real skill. Voice actors are to be admired because they can do this. You have to be able to do several things at once. I'm not particularly good at that. So it was very fortunate for me that we didn't have that approach. I don't know that I would have survived the series if I had I could do the voice, I could do the acting, but to get the lips in sync, everything in sync, is a real skill. And if you can't take 10 takes, you have to. They want it done in 1 take, maybe 2. So I'm just saying it was fortunate for me.
Sure. I guess what I was getting at was, like, when we talked with Doug, and he had somewhat of a stage background, and how much just the reflection that you have to do to the audience helped him in his recording sessions. And he did several characters as well, and it's obviously admirable when you can go from one character voice to the next without skipping a beat, and obviously you did a few like that. I'm not sure if you had any of those, within your recording session where you're having to do Miles Mayhem on, and then immediately do like Alex, the British accent, right after that, and how much it, that is truly a skill. I definitely agree.
Well, many times, so everybody had to shift from one character to another, and for me, probably the difficult part of the shift is that Miles Mayhem is very throaty, and Alex Sector is not. So you have to shift physically. So the muscles that you use in your throat for Miles Mayhem, you have to let go of them, and then you shift into Alex, or he's somewhat professorial, and more gentler and kinder. But yeah, all of the actors, and Doug Stone in particular, had a very good skill. Doug was very skilled.
You've already really touched on it with the recording sessions, but where was your, I guess, inspiration for the voices? Was there some kind of list or something that they'd like to hear for Alex or Miles, or did you just kind of, I'm going to try this for Miles and see if it sticks? If it doesn't work, then I'll try this other voice.
Yeah, the answer is you have to make the decision. It's very interesting. I think that from the general public's point of view, it wouldn't be something that you would anticipate. But what a producer has a problem. A producer has a character. That character for the producer is a problem. What the producer wants is a solution. So you have to decide when you're the actor auditioning, you have to bring the solution. And to bring the solution, you have to make choices. So you can't be wishy-washy because your performance is, if you're wishy-washy or not strong, your performance is going to reflect it. So you have to make hard decisions, throw it against the wall, and see if it sticks. You know, for me, looking at Miles Mayhem, if you look at the drawing, I mean, he's as thick as mud. He's as thick as wood. So, you know, he certainly wasn't going to be up here. You know, I'll get you. He was going to be aggressive, throaty, and it was. I was concerned. I mean, one, I wanted the role. Two, I was concerned about whether I could maintain it, because that kind of throatiness, if you don't handle it well and you're in a studio doing that for 8 hours, you'll eventually lose your voice. So I think my background as an actor somewhat helped prevent that occurrence. But to answer your question, you make hard choices and you commit to it and pray it works. and you know, I will say, because this really further answers your question or expands on it, when we would go into the studio, there would be several casual characters that are only in that episode.
Right.
So we all of us had to audition for those characters on the spot.
Oh, wow.
So, yes, you're playing Miles Mayhem or Matt Tracker, but now there's this other character, and he comes from China, and you now have to come up with something. And we would all compete, and it was a generous competition, you know, because, you know, we all wanted, because if we got that character, we were paid more money. So there was a natural competition there, and, you know, sometimes I would be successful, sometimes I wouldn't. And they would have to, you know, the producers, Marsha Goodman in particular, would have to make the choices right there. Okay, you're going to play, Chow Wee Lu, Doug Stone. And then that's what he's going to do. He's going to do it. He's going to play that character. And that happened all the time.
I thought it was pretty fascinating when we talked with Doug that he actually portrayed your brother in the later episodes, Maximus Mayhem,
Right.
in that he was able to, you know, to do that throatiness on there as well. And, as far as Sharon goes, it seems like she pretty much had all of the ladies throughout the whole series. You know, even if it wasn't one of the main characters, if there was a doctor or somebody within that episode, it was her. So,
well, yeah,
that's pretty amazing.
You know, she was the only one in the room that wore a bra. So she had a natural advantage. And also, she had the skill. So she could.
Sure. Well, I guess tell us a little bit more, kind of moving past M.A.S.K, and have you done more acting past then, or your IMDb page isn't really giving? You have the mysterious edge there, like Miles.
Well,
but
I think mysterious is very kind. First of all, acting is a big career. And I had been doing it for some, I guess, I'm not sure, 30 years by the time we came here.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, I did other stuff. You know, I did some television, Star Trek, Hunter, but the
Melrose Place.
thank you, Bobo. Melrose Place. The truth is that, you know, there are too many actors and not enough parts. And at some point, I decided that I didn't want to keep on continue chasing it. So I really terminated my acting career, and I went into real estate, and then I went to law school, and am now waiting results for the California bar so that I could function as an attorney. So I guess what I would say is it's not that I wouldn't like to act. They're simply, you spend too much time getting the work and not enough time doing the work. You know, something like M.A.S.K was magical, just magical. And it just doesn't happen all the time. But I'm not unhappy with that. You know, I like what I do, and so I still go out periodically. I go out for commercials, and I have to confess, you know, Sharon keeps on jabbing me in the ribs and saying, you know, why don't you go out and audition for stuff? And I must say that I'm reconsidering going back out and auditioning.
Well, it'd be great to see you in whatever's up and coming, whether it's a commercial or a feature on a TV show, or who knows, it might be the next NCIS agent. Who knows?
Who knows? Who knows?
What led you into that career of to get into law? I mean, what, I guess, unless you really liked Miles Mayhem and wanted to be a prosecutor or something.
No, it's one of those, you know, I guess, well, we all have, I guess, deeply personal desires. And for whatever reason, as a young fellow, I thought that I would like to be a lawyer. And I wanted to be a lawyer because it was the only place that I could find where the buck stops. You know, people have problems in their lives, they have conflicts, and they do all sorts of things that either don't resolve those conflicts or cause damage to other people. The law is this great forum where if you can bring people into its arms, it resolves their problems probably as best as they could be resolved. And it allows people, once they find a resolution, to move on. So I know that probably sounds, I'm not quite sure what it sounds like, but that's what it is that the law can do great justice and really help people move on with their lives and punish those that interfere with other people's lives.
That's actually a good way of putting it, because I know we typically see what we see on TV, whatever it is, and I'm even talking what we see in reality, the news media, and so forth. And I like your perspective a lot better than what we shallowly see from what the news media kind of throws at us, rather than sitting in the actual courtroom and hearing all the actual proceedings going on, where you have a little more of a defined answer, I guess.
Yes, I understand what you're saying, and of course, the news media's job is it's as much entertainment as anything else, and of course, if you actually go into a courtroom, people would be snoring with boredom in short order. But what you do see, if it's if it's an interest that you might have, you watch the judge control everything, and the judge has massive power, and the judge listens to people every day of his life. He hears people lie, and he hears people tell the truth, and his job is to get this case resolved, and he does so. He does so by making orders that people must comply with, and if they don't, they face the wrath of the court. So it's a function. It's a social function in our society that provides guidance and closure for people.
Well, that's great. We certainly, won't hold anything against you for, choosing another career. I know, just like I said, when we talked with Doug, it's such a hard life. You're working, 16 hours a day or even more, if you're lucky, especially with the voice acting. And I know Doug has made a career of it, and it's amazing, the laundry list of shows and video games and everything that he's been on. But we obviously, here we are, a couple of almost 40-year-old kids talking about a show that we kind of cherished and loved and still do to this day. So well,
I'm sorry to interrupt.
No, that's fine.
I just wanted to comment on that. One of the things that we as actors don't recognize at the time is that this, in fact, does have an impact on people, and there are these children out there that this is part of their architecture, and it's like, I'm not sure how old you are, but someday you'll go back to the house that you were born in. And look at it, and you'll say, "Oh my God, somebody's living in my house."
I've actually done that.
Yeah, it's kind of shocking. Would you please get out of my house? You're in my bedroom. But the Mask and other shows have the same impact because they become part of your psyche, and those are your memories are part of who you are. And so all I'm saying is, I didn't appreciate at the time, this impacts people.
Yeah.
I was going to say, we can attest that I'm nearing 40, with Jason trailing behind me at 39. So being that this is the 30th year, you can kind of do the math of how old we were when we watched Mask for first time. And
right.
It is part of the psyche to some degree. In fact, that's what's kind of projected us here now, doing these little podcasts and so forth. We started this venture out trying to see if we could do a movie script, and it kind of went from movie script idea to let's just be a community, because there didn't seem to be much of a Mask following like there might be for people that liked Transformers or whatever it was in the 80s. And Jason and I never would have fathomed to be able to, one, have podcasts or have such a following that we do, on top of now being able to sit here on Skype and visit with the arch enemy of us, Miles Mayhem, as well as eventually your lovely wife, Sharon. We've joked, and Jason and I have joked that calling her the First Lady of M.A.S.K.
Yes.
Yes, right.
You're kind of the first family of M.A.S.K, really.
Really, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we had the awesome opportunity just back in September. We went up to this convention in Philadelphia, RetroCon, and Doug Stone actually flew over and was there. We got to meet him, and we held a little panel. And it was just surreal almost to kind of be there and be there essentially for M.A.S.K. And we've been hearing over the last year or so that maybe finally Hasbro is going to try to do a comeback or something like that, a new series or a new toy line or something. I guess what's your thoughts on that? Do you ever think about another reiteration of M.A.S.K and all of that?
Well, let me say two things. It's always terrible to ask me a question because I always have this long answer. Something that you allude to is that, here we are, and the key word here is here we are. That what you guys are doing and a product of all of this, Sharon, I, Doug Stone, everybody, is that you have this community, and it's really important in the world. The world is made up of community. The world is made up of we, and the world is only worth living in if it's we. The world is not worth living in if it's just me. So that's a product of what you guys are doing, and this technology that allows this community to flourish. I'd love to do it if they came up with another one. I'll be there at 8 a.m. It would be delightful.
That's great. I guess we'll leave you maybe with one more parting question, because I know, like Sharon said, you have some other things to do. We won't keep you all online, and we want to, of course, talk to her as well. But tell us a little bit about, I guess, the relationships with the other actors, if you've been able to keep up with Doug and with Mark and Graham over the years, and have you connected still? Yes,
we retained a relationship with Doug, with Mark. I think we had tea with Mark, maybe 6 months ago. Graham McKenna, I believe he moved to New York, but we did see him, periodically. But the truth is, we haven't seen him for several years. But we do continue to see Doug. We'll have he'll come over for dinner, Thanksgiving or something, and Mark also. Yes, we we're all busy, as you guys understand. You're busy with your everyday life. I go to an office every day, and
we do too.
yeah. So we don't see a lot of each other, but we do care about each other. I consider Doug a very close personal friend, and Mark. That relationship endures.
It just seemed from when we talked with Doug and just looking at essentially your resume and all the actors' resume, that M.A.S.K was kind of the first big thing as far as animation or television for all of you, and it just seemed like it's made a lasting impression on everybody and kind of kept you together. I guess that's what I was alluding to. Kind of a loaded question, but
right.
It just has seemed that way, and it just seems like it was a genuine moment for all of you at that point for something like that to quote unquote blow up, at the time in your careers.
Absolutely. It was a shared opportunity, and all of us understood the size of the opportunity. So, we were, I have to say, in all the recordings, all the sessions, there was never, not one moment of conflict.
Wow.
Everybody worked hard. People were not being nasty or manipulating things behind the scenes to get more opportunity than the others. So in that sense, it had a family sense, and I think the substance of that relationship during the recording of the series is why we are still friends today.
That's great.
It's awesome.
Okay, I guess I should recede and let Sharon.
But Miles Mayhem never surrenders, though, right?
Yeah.
Well, you put me in a bit of a quandary.
Well, we have the advantage of going. We've sequentially gone through the series, so we know that there was always some conflict between Vanessa Warfield and Miles Mayhem in the series. So,
well,
we won't let you battle it out on the air or anything.
Yeah. I have to stop. Okay. I'm about to reveal things. Right. Never say what you can't take back.
Okay.
Okay.
We really appreciate your time. Thank you so much.
Well, it's been a pleasure, and I thank you, and I'm delighted with what you're doing.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
I'll go get the boss.
Hello.
Greetings.
Hi, Sharon.
How you doing?
So did he give you all the secrets? Do I have anything left to tell you?
Well, we got his side of the story, so I guess now it's your turn.
Could be very different. There he is. Now I've got you both. Okay, I'm ready when you are.
We've titled you really the First Lady of M.A.S.K.
I'm the only lady of M.A.S.K, so I have to be. I did not only I did all the female characters, so that was every single woman and every child except for Scott. I did every child, male, female, whatever. And I did all the animals who spoke. I did the animals. I even did the cuckoo clock in one episode.
Wow.
I'm gonna put that one down.
Mm-hmm.
I had no idea.
Mm-hmm. If it speaks and it's not one of the guys, it's me.
Well, we heard we heard Brennan's side of the story of how you guys met and got into acting. What's your side of it?
Oh, how we met, Brendan and I?
Yes.
Or how? Well, he told you we met doing a play, right?
Yes.
Yes, we did. Yes, and in that play, I've told him this many times, I was impressed with his acting. I remember thinking to myself, oh my God, there's another actor in this play. Because there are a lot of people who work as actors who really don't have any depth. You know, they just sort of run over the top. And my feeling is you need to plumb the depths. You need to get into it and shape it and then present something finished, a finished product to your audience. And there are so many actors, if you will, who don't bother to do that. And when I bumped into Brendan and saw what he was doing, I was extremely impressed. And so when he asked me to have a cup of tea with him, I had a cup of tea with him, and we talked theater. And we talked acting, and we talked shaping and creating, and it was. I've told him this. It's like meeting myself. Yeah.
You're picture yourself. Is that what you're saying?
It's like coming out of a forest, right, on one side, and there's somebody coming out of a forest on the other side, and when you see each other, you say, "Oh, that's me. I just happen to be in a different form." But yeah. I know it sounds wacky, but that's what I feel. I felt as if I'd met myself.
That's great.
Mm-hmm. And we did, I think, 3 or 4 plays together afterwards. Actually, we did, the first play we did was called The Hostage. It was at Magnus Theatre Northwest in Canada. And after we finished that one, the director asked each of us if we would be interested in doing Stop the World, I Want to Get Off. If you've never seen Stop the World, I Want to Get Off, you have missed an experience that you need to rectify. It is an amazing show. It's a musical. And you're really never off stage. I think the only time I was off stage is when I died. And it's just singing and dancing and story. And so we said, sure. I went home to my home for a week, and he studied for a week. So we did that show, and then we went home. I went home to my home in Winnipeg. He went to his home in Toronto, And then I got a call from Summer Company. They were doing 4 plays in Rep, actually. And so I went to this place called Blythe, Ontario, to do 4 shows in the summer. And when I got there, who was there? In the cast. So there an opportunity for us to work with, do 4 more shows together. He works a little differently from the way I do. I've been doing this longer because I started when I was about 3 years old. My mother said the first time I was on stage, I was 3 years old, and I sang and danced. So,
wow.
So it's something that I've had in my brain. When I was a little kid, people would say, "What do you want to be when you grow up?" And I would always say, "I want to be what I am, an actor. That's what I am. There's no B to it. I am that already. I'm just waiting to get big enough that I can start working." So it's a little different style. And Brandan will attack a difficult job, and he will hammer at it, or he'll gnaw at it like a dog with a bone, until he finally gets what he's looking for, and he comes up with these beautiful characterizations that are just amazing. I don't do that. I also write novels, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Well, people say, how do you make an outline, or do you have some sort of synopsis? And I say, no, I'm a pantser, and that's a term that they use with authors. They say, do you write out your outline, or do you just sort of write and whatever comes into your head? And that's doing it by the seat of your pants. And so I act by the seat of my pants, and I write by the seat of my pants. And that's not to say that I don't think about it, because it's in my head all the time. But in practice of doing it, it seems to just, when you were asking Brandan about the characters, what voices to give to them, I looked at the pictures, because we had pictures from Japan. They did our storyboards for us. And I thought, this is obvious. I've got Vanessa, I've got Gloria, I've got a computer, and I'm going to have a whole bunch of kids. But I'll worry about the kids later. So the voices were really easy, because I thought of Gloria as some sort of a maybe 25-year-old tomboy kind of girl. And then, Vanessa came ready packed. There was no question as to how Vanessa was going to sound, or what she was like, or who she liked, or what she would like to do with Matt Tracker, or any of the other guys for that matter. So it was relatively easy. The slightly difficult part was the computer, because I had seen, of course, 2001: A Space Odyssey with HAL, that computer.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
And I thought, I don't want to try to do, and the one on Star Trek too, remember the female voice. I didn't want to do that. I didn't want a repeat of that. I wanted it to be very different. So when I went into the audition, I just said, okay, well, this is what I've come up with. And they said, great, fine. Later on, I didn't realize that when you're in the studio, you may have had the computer voice here. It was about here that I wanted to talk about. And she's in the other one, and she's in her car now. Well, maybe a few minutes later you had that again, and you forget what pitch you were at. So then I'd have to say, I'm sorry, could I have playback? Because I'd find myself going, higher maybe? Up, and then I think, no, playback. So we kept that consistent by having playback every time I had to do the computer, which I found extremely helpful. And perhaps I could have avoided had I given it a little more thought before I presented it to them. Because once I presented it to them, they said, good, problem solved. Okay, let's get on with something else, And it became my problem how to make sure that it was consistent, not their problem, which is the correct way to do it. Yeah. I'm sorry, I'm rattling. You would ask me something?
No, that's fine. I guess tell us a little bit about the transition from theater into television and eventually into M.A.S.K, and how that kind of took place.
I never thought of it as a transition. It's like, how many fingers do I have? I have 10 fingers. They all belong to me. I know how to work all of them. So today I'm going to use this finger. Oh, can I also use this finger? Sure. And those are all the skills that you have, that you have. So you just simply move from one room to another room, and they're all there. I was once, that summer that I talked about, there was an actor in the company who she's become a very, very good friend. And I had a scene in there where my son had been lost at sea. Brendan was playing my husband, and my son had been lost at sea. And a light comes up downstage, and a sailor comes in carrying a bundle of clothing. And Brendan goes down and takes the bundle of clothing from him. And that's the information going to the audience that their son is dead. And at that moment, the audience goes, like that. But I'm off stage. I don't hear any of that, right? My character's off stage. He calls her on stage. And as soon as he calls her name and she comes on stage, she sees that package. And she completely falls apart. And then we sit downstage, and he starts saying the Lord's Prayer, and I'm weeping, tears falling down my face. This actor came to me, and she said, how do you do that? How do you do that? And I thought, what do you mean, how do I do it? I never thought about how you do it. You just, it's just one of the things you have to be able to do. And I said to her, which I was going to say just a minute ago about having different rooms, is you have, in your psyche, you have all these different rooms. If you need something, religious, you go to that room. If you need something that makes you feel happy, you go to that room. If you need a place that will make you weep, you go to that room. And it's there waiting for you. You've had all these experiences. If you're an adult, let's say by the time you're 30, you've had all these experiences. So you just have to be able to pull them out of your pocket, like the rabbit out of the hat. You just need to be able to pull it up. It's there. But you have to know where it is and know how to get there and do it this fast. And speaking of shifting from character to character, you know where those characters are. And I'm going to shift from this finger to this. It's easy because I know where they are. And I'm not going to get lost. I know who they are, and I know where they are. And I know what they sound like. Because I made them.
You make it sound very easy, and I guess that's a testament to your career and how you're still doing acting.
You've been
today.
You've been to my IMDb.
I have. Yes, I always like to do a little bit of history before I talk to people that I'm just meeting. But
that's a very clever thing.
But no, no, I just wanted to say. I mean, it is a testament to that I don't think people can just switch that on and go to a different compartment so easily, like you say you're able to do. So and that's great.
Well, I've heard some actors whom I admire very much talk about the difficulty, but I've also heard them talk about the same idea that I have. I taught acting for a number of years at the University of Winnipeg in Manitoba, Canada, and I found that when I had young people, mostly young second-year students, and some of those second-year students were people who were coming back to school, who were like 40, 50 years old. And when I talked about this particular approach to the young people, I was met with these blank stares and open mouths. They had no idea they had no idea. Because they didn't have those places yet. Mm-hmm. The older people would nod. Now, they would have difficulty going there because a lot of people are self-conscious about revealing maybe sides of themselves that are not particularly attractive. But that's the point of an actor. That's what we do. Right. And we relish it. We take pleasure in it. We take joy in it. We take pride in the fact that we can do that. And it's like drinking, for me. It's like pouring warm milk over my head. It's indescribable. It's wonderful, and I love it. And the stuff I'm doing most recently, I actually have a shoot on what's tomorrow? Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. And I was saying to Brendan, every time I go in for an audition, they always are expecting somebody with gray hair. And my father died with no gray hair. My mother died with only the beginnings of gray hair. We just don't get gray hair in my family. So I bought myself a gray wig. And boy, did work pick up. All of a sudden, they're just everywhere. Those last two entries you saw on IMDb, Those are both. I think one of them is finished, and the other one's in post-production. When I went to the table read and didn't have the wig, the gray wig, everybody said, wait, what? I said, don't worry, here's the wig. I have the wig in my hands. And that's because everybody has their preconceived notions, you see, of what you should look like.
Sure.
But when you're doing a cartoon series, you can be a panda. I was a panda. I was a cat. If you remember, there was an episode where the bad guy was sitting in his chair and he had a cat on his lap.
Yes.
And he was petting the cat. That was me. If you go back, you'll hear me meow. And there was a cuckoo clock in one. And then there was one where they were visiting pandas in China. And they said to me, okay, Sharon, here's your panda. And I said, what a panda sounds like. They said, just make something up. So I'm going... because I don't know. And they said, good, cool, go on, move on. And as Brendan was saying before, problem solved. Let's keep moving.
Right.
Because we had 2 days a week in the studio, and we had 4 hours. And in 4 hours, we could do 2 episodes. So we could do 4 episodes a week. If our storyboards came in from Japan, sometimes they would be late, or we wouldn't get them in time, and we'd have to then book another day. But it was pretty much 4 episodes a week, so they needed to really, and you had 2 hours to do it, so you need to whip on through it. And that meant that every actor, when it came time to audition for those extra characters that just showed up all of a sudden, we know nothing about them. All we know is all of a sudden in your hand you've got this script and it's got all these extra characters. Everybody had to come to it prepared to audition for other things. So you've got to have a lot of characters. And I really admire Doug, because Doug has a lot of characters in his head.
He sure does.
And he just sort of pulls them out like this. I don't have that many. I have maybe a third of what he has. But he's done a lot of improv. And in improv, you have to come up with these characters.
Right.
And so he has the benefit of that. But it was such fun. We had such a good time. It's a very pleasant memory of our first few weeks here, that we came here and within 2 weeks we were working. And the fact that everybody has enjoyed it so much. And we were looking it up, Googling it before you guys called. And I didn't realize it had been translated into French and German and Swahili or whatever else it's been translated into. And it's and the boxed sets are being sold all over the world. Amazing. I didn't know that. I thought it would just die its normal death, and it hasn't.
No, it's been a mecca really of a franchise. We've learned just recently that it went to Argentina. There are even toys made. There are certain box sets. And Jason can tell you about that as for a collector's side of it. That you can go to Germany and there's a German M.A.S.K type of characters and box sets. You can go to Argentina. You can go to other countries, and there's minor.
You would call them knockoffs, yeah. But
are they
still?
Are they like knockoffs, or are they good?
Well, they're essentially repainted toys, I think, from America, and they repackaged, gave them a different little paint scheme. Mainly the toys in Europe were about the same. There was just different box art and such, but it was practically the same. But yeah, I mean, we've seen groups on Facebook from Indonesia. Just with this podcast, it's been pretty neat. Our host gives us some statistics back of what countries and where people listen and download. And there's people that listen in Australia, a lot of people in Europe, and of course, United States and Canada mainly. One of our most faithful listeners, who's a huge Menace fan, she's from Norway. So it is amazing. It's almost like a silent franchise worldwide.
What is her name? I think I know her.
Anna.
Anna, of course.
Yes.
She writes to me. We correspond because she also
that's great.
She also reads my books. So after she reads one of them, she says, "Okay, what else?" And I said, "Go to Amazon.com. All the books, all 3 books are there." And she just recently finished the third one. She says, "Okay, now what are you writing?" And I said, "Anna, I'm up to my eyeballs. I just have it. I need 5 or 6 hours at a stretch to really get deep enough that I can actually make something decent. I just don't have time." And she said, "Okay, but what kind of ideas are you having?" Well, I have a couple of ideas. And then she wrote me back and said, yeah, do that one. I want to see that one. And of course, now I've got her pressing me at my back saying, write something else. She's neat. She's a neat lady. I like her.
Yeah, it sounds like she's a real motivator.
She is.
We have a small email list that we send out questions to. Of course, she's part of that, and I'm surprised she even wrote a question in, because it sounds like you two practically know each other.
Yeah, just about do. Because we've been talking back and forth for, it's a couple of years now. I think it's been.
Yeah, she was one of the early adapters of our website and our show, and she's very faithful. Each time we do an episode review, we ask people to kind of leave their own review and rate it 1 to 5, what they thought of it. And all but maybe 1 or 2, she's always there with her take, and she's real knowledgeable about the M.A.S.K series.
And she's thoughtful.
Very thoughtful.
Yeah.
Yes.
And she's just not stuff that's just off the bat. She's very thoughtful. So tell me, what is your favorite episode?
Wow. Well, I can tell you what's not my favorite episode.
Okay, tell me that.
And that would be why I can tell you about this. That would be the Panda episode.
Uh-huh.
There was, and it's easy for us now to critique it because we're looking at it through different eyes than we did when we were 8 or 9 years old. And there's some episodes the animation was better than others, and the sound effects seem to have changed throughout as well, which is, there's kind of no consistency with that. So that kind of bugs me. But for some reason, the Panda Power episode was not one that I that I enjoyed that much. I think one of our favorites from the beginning was the Rotex, where they have these bugs that they have to find, and Mayhem is trying to unleash them, and they eat all of the M.A.S.K vehicles and such. And it was the first point where we got a true reality, I guess, of the M.A.S.K vehicles. We see Matt Tracker's baby, the Thunderhawk Camaro, totally destroyed. I mean, he crash lands, there's doors flying off, and he's kind of trapped in there, and Mayhem comes up to finish him once for all, and that was really the first time that we saw that realism about the show, where it's not just lasers shooting overhead, the kind of the A-Team style of show from the 80s where nobody got hurt. And but that's one that I really enjoy. Another one, well, I'm skipping ahead because the next one we're going to do is when Miles Mayhem has this crystal skull, and he can actually see Matt Tracker's identity, and we're finally getting into some other elements of the series that we haven't gotten in the first 30 some odd episodes, where they kind of know each other and things like that. And like Wyatt mentioned to Brendan, we actually wrote a movie script.
Yes, I know.
For like a live action movie, and that's more kind of our universe, our world that we created. Was they know each other? There's a history there, and really M.A.S.K didn't have an origin story, but just in the comics. And I kind of wish that there would have been 4 or 5 episodes to start, to see how it all began, and otherwise just M.A.S.K and Venom are there, and we don't know why they're fighting each other, other than one side's obviously good and one side's obviously evil. But
that's all.
I don't know. I kind of like that.
We didn't know any more than that.
Right, I'm sure.
But we didn't particularly care. We said, okay, I got it. I'm going to go with it.
Yeah.
And then and what you do is, as you move along, as we were moving along, I realized one day, it just hit me all of a sudden. One day we were in the studio, and I realized that Vanessa had evolved. That she had, and I think, well, how has she evolved? And I don't know, but I felt she was deeper, that she was a richer character. It just suddenly came to me. And I thought, well, you've been doing her for so long. I mean, there's 75 episodes.
Sure.
You've been doing her so long that you know her better now. you can present her, maybe not as a better or worse person, but as a fuller character than she was. And she was more easily known than Gloria. Gloria seemed to be, I won't call her one-dimensional, but certainly not multi-dimensional. And I thought that possibly Vanessa had hidden depths that we didn't plumb. And sometimes I got the impression that she had a thing for Miles Mayhem, and sometimes I was sure she had a thing for Matt Tracker, and from time to time with Brad. I mean, there's some stuff there with Brad. I mean, Brad's a cute fellow. I mean, he's a good-looking guy, and you should have seen
He's a rock star.
You should see Graham McKenna, who was his voice. He's gorgeous, just gorgeous. Lots of dark hair and great face. He, by the way, I'm not sure where he's living now, but he's on Facebook. He's on my Facebook. If you would like, I'll send him a note asking if he'd be interested in doing one of these, because he can tell you all the problems he had getting the robot going.
We've heard now from Doug that was a struggle.
Oh, the T-Bob episode, it goes on and on and on, and he felt he was in danger a while there of losing that role because they just couldn't decide what they wanted. And I thought he did a beautiful job with it, considering it's... Go ahead.
We attest when we did our episode reviews that there was, especially early on, T-Bob seemed to have a voice change periodically before they landed on the we now know. And like you were saying earlier about Vanessa, I have noticed in the episodes going back now, as a kid, I probably wouldn't have thought anything of it. Going through it now, probably part of it is the script, but you see that there's more of a kind of like a brother, sister, sibling rivalry going on with Rax specifically, but they're always picking at each other. Right. She even gives Miles a couple comments off and on, for whatever reason, just to spur it on. Where before it wasn't, it was just more, I'm going to give you a taste of whip, and that would be the extent of really the characters' evolution, so to speak.
If they will give you even one line that you can grab onto, that will help the character to evolve, and you can't keep in 75 episodes. You don't want to keep the same level all the time. I mean, even though it's for kids, the kids are not stupid. They recognize something that has quality and something that doesn't have quality. So I think anyway, my kids did. Because my kids are so smart. Most beautiful kids in the whole world, of course. But it was an experience. Also, have you spoken to Mark Halloran?
I have chatted with him a little bit on Facebook, and we're trying to set up a chat with him as well. So we definitely want his take.
He's amazing. He is amazing. We saw his show at the Comedy Store some years ago, and he's the only person I've ever seen do an impression of William Hurt. How do you do William Hurt? But I recognize it as William Hurt. He doesn't do all the obvious ones. He does do Woody Allen, but he does William Shatner. How do you do William Shatner? And he does. So when we went in, he just had this whole basket of voices.
Sure.
That he could, and I thought, that's not fair. He's already got them. I got to work to get them, and he's got this basket filled with polished. He was a winner on Star Search.
Wow.
Oh, wow, I didn't know that.
You have to look for him now and post it on.
Just go to YouTube and type in Mark Halloran Star Search, and you'll see his act. Then you'll see him win, and he doesn't know what to do with himself. They said the winner is Mark Halloran, and he's sort of going, "Oh, I think it's me." Oh, all right, it goes over. But yeah, he had just done that. It had been like a month or so before he had done it. And then we started shooting, and so he's just pulling all these voices out of his ears, and what it did with the rest of us is it prompted us to work a little harder to come up with. So I like that. Always work with somebody who can make you better.
Sure. Yeah.
Somebody who can pull you down. So that's what attracted me to Brandan. I thought working with him will make me better. More will be demanded of me. Yeah. Yeah, I suppose it's life, isn't it? It's you want to get better whenever you can. So
About your novels, what I guess what prompted you or motivated you to get into romance novels to write that? Was it just a spark idea and you just had to put it on paper, or
it's going to sound. This is going to sound as if I'm being coy. I'm not. This is the absolute God's truth. We were in Canada, and I was temping for a lawyer, and she had no work to do, nothing. So she's sitting in her office, twiddling her thumbs, looking out the window, and I'm sitting at my desk out front with nothing to do. So I'm thinking, well, I'm bored out of my mind. What am I going to do with myself? What's on here? And in my head, I heard a female voice say, "But madam, why does it have to be me?" I thought, okay, but madam, why does it have to be me? Whatever that is. And then another older voice said, "Because you're my best seamstress, and because Australia is my very dearest friend, and I want this wedding to be perfect." And then I thought, what is this all about? I had discovered that whoever spoke first was a seamstress, and there's something about a wedding. And it just sparked an interest, and it just started coming like that, and I just started writing it. I mean, I feel silly when I say this. I remember when I was writing that particular one, and I was upstairs, and Brendan said, "Are you going to come down for lunch?" And I said, "Oh, okay, but I have to hurry because I don't want to miss the movie." And I came down, and I had a really fast sandwich. And he said, "You're going to stay down?" I said, "No, I've got to go back because I'm watching the movie." And he said, "What movie?" I said, "The movie in my head. I have to watch it so I can write it down because they may start talking, and I won't get a chance to write it down." And all I did was I watched what they were doing, and I wrote what they were doing, and then I heard what they said, and I wrote what they said. And I know that sounds as though I'm a lunatic, but that's how I write. And then when it comes to an end, I'm done. So if they say, "Well, can you make it a little longer?" I think, well, I don't know. I have to stir these people up and see if they'll do anything else because their resolution is already done. And why it was a romance novel, I have no idea. Couldn't tell you. That's just what came into my head. And since I was successful in selling it to a publisher, I thought, well, let's see if I can do another one here. So I took a story that was sort of a kickoff from when my mother went back to college after all of her children had finished, and she was 55 years old, I think. And I wrote a book about a younger woman than that. She was turning 50, and she had lost her husband, and she went back to school, and what happened to her there at the university. And that one was successful as well. So I thought, well, we'll try another one. And as long as they keep coming into my head with the first line, I can continue to write. But for the past 3 years, nothing has come into my... Usually it happens that I'm walking the dogs or I'm driving somewhere. I'll just hear something.
Mowing the grass on this.
Mowing the grass.
I get so many ideas mowing the grass.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
That's me. I think it takes me double the time to mow my lawn because I have an idea.
Yes.
Like me, I won't get with the times. I still have my own flip. This is my memo pad. I sit there and literally text myself an email. It'll be just 3 or 4 words, and that'll be the line. And Jason, I'm sure, does something similar to that, because if I don't type it or write it down, I've already lost it. It's gone forever. There's no memory up in here anymore.
Wait until you get to be the age that we are. You have to say, we say to each other, I'll say, "I'm sorry to interrupt you, but I have to say this before I forget it. And if I don't say it right now, it will be gone, because in a millisecond, it's gone." And sometimes the other person on the other end will say, "Okay, well, but so and so and so." And then they'll say, "Now, what did you want to say?" And I say, "I have no idea." It has to be, when it hits my head, I have to say it because it won't stay. And at night, that's when a lot of ideas come at night. And I have these pencils that you write on china with. You can write on glass with them. They're red things. I have those. And I get up during the night, and since I don't want to turn the light on to wake Brendan up, I write on the mirror with that pencil, with that pen. Yeah, I'm not kidding. And I know that the next morning I'm going to see it, and then I will remember it.
But I'm
But
sure
it's-
it's trying to figure out what ghost walked into our room last our mirror.
Yeah.
It's
Well,
a murder mystery.
Yeah, but he doesn't use my bathroom. He has a bathroom on the other, around the hall on the other side. So when I walk in the morning, I'm saying, "Oh, thank you, Sharon, for doing me this favor and writing it last night, because I would never have remembered it." And sometimes it's things just like a name, and the name of a character will come, and I don't want to forget it, because it'll be really. These are really crucial. The names are really crucial for some reason. I don't know why, but yeah, I think this whole what we're talking about here, it becomes very Zen. You know, your mind is open because you're not thinking about anything. You're mowing the lawn, and that is something which is almost trance-inducing.
Right.
So it opens up your mind for all this stuff to come in. And the funny thing is that all that stuff is there, and you say, where did that come from? And it came from because you have probably millions of ideas, but they just need that Zen moment to express themselves.
And I can attest to that because some time ago I wrote a book, and it's still been in the works for I don't know how many years. I keep thinking it's done, and I keep having a friend or two look at it, and they're like, "Where's the detail? Or where's this? Or where's that?" I'm like, "Well, I'm done. I don't know about any other bad, but I'm done."
Sorry, I didn't mean to do that.
But it's not just fiction, but because you're on that topic of the novel, how did you just kind of, here, I'm done with the book after you were done, and say, here it is, and the publisher said, yeah, that's great, that's what I want, or sounds like it'll be a seller, or really that process work? Because M.A.S.K aside, I know that we're going a whole different rabbit trail like we typically do, Jason.
Right.
I'm interested because
I've
had this idea, like I said, it has to be going on for being military. I go from assignment to assignment, not years. It's probably been 12 years I've had this book so-called done.
Mm-hmm.
Added little things to it, but it hasn't really grown to a point where it's, I don't know, I'm not adding 100 pages to it. I'm adding maybe a page or two if I'm lucky. I'm at 150, I think, right now.
I write scene by scene. I write a scene, and when it comes to its conclusion, I'm done, and then I leave the computer because that's now done, and then I go back the next day or so, and I read that scene again as if it's somebody else's book, and I say, does that interest you enough that you'd want to continue reading? And I never send anything into a publisher that I haven't gone over with a fine-tooth comb. I write it, and then I read it, and then inevitably I make changes, and then after I've made the changes, then I read it, but not right away. Wait a day or so. Funnily enough, I was scheduled for a book signing at the Burbank Library for a Saturday, but it conflicts with this shoot, so I had to cancel it. And I would love to have gone and done this, because that's one of the things that people always ask, how do you put this together? But I come from I teach English. I was also teaching English at the University of Winnipeg and at Red River Community College, and I teach English as a second language. Now have been doing that for about 10 years here at the Beverly Hills Lingual Institute. So first of all, my grammar is perfect. And so that I don't have to worry about. So right. then I have to worry about, is this the kind of thing that would draw me in as a reader? And if it doesn't, then I have to rewrite it. And I've a couple of times, I'm sure everybody does this, I'll bet you have too. I think I'm finished and I think, oh, I know what I should have done. Now, sometimes it's already gone to press and it's too late, or maybe it's not. If it's not, you can go back, and I did that, went back and put another scene in that explained a lot of stuff. I think the first thing that you want to do is, does your subject interest you? And would you read it if you were to buy it? And would you read it? Would you like it well enough that you would buy it and read it? From time to time, I go into the library and I pull down one of my books and I start to read it. And I think, damn, this is good. And then I think, I can't write this anymore. I don't know, who was I? Who wrote this? Where did I get all this from? Because if I sat down today, I wouldn't know how to do it. Well, of course I would.
Right.
But you really never know when you're done. If you're writing to order, I mean, the books that I write, they ask for 55,000, no less than 55,000 words, and no more than 60. So somewhere between there is what they want. If you write over that, they say it's not our thing. Send it somewhere else. So know your market, and know how many pages you have to write, and then overwrite. Because what you're going to have to do is you're going to have to trim. And if you don't overwrite, you've got no fat to trim. And trust yourself. The biggest thing is trust yourself. But if you're writing about something that you love and you're actually in the process of writing, you should whip along. I mean, you should be writing not a chapter a day. That's too much. Well, some people do. I don't. But certainly a scene a day. Right. And then let it cook a little while. And then know who to send it to. Know who to send it to. Just make sure that you go online and Google lists of the kinds of publishers who publish what you're writing. And first of all, know what you're writing.
Right.
You know, you might have a book about a woman who loves flowers, and you go into great detail about how she plants and how her arbor looks and everything. And yet the book has nothing to do with plants. It just happens that she likes all these plants, and somebody reads it and says, well, what's with all the plants? Can you get on with the story? Move on with the story. And if it's fiction, keep the story moving. Keep it moving. And this I learned the hard way. Lots of dialogue, not much exposition. Because they say people will skip over the exposition to get to the dialogue. And of course, in my books, if a man picks it up, I mean, women will read it. They read it all the way through, and they're caught up in it. But every man who's picked up, like friends of ours who pick up one of my books, they pick up the book, and they go, "Oh, wow! Oh, my! You can't." Oh. Oh my goodness. So they're just skipping to the hot parts.
Yeah.
Right? So they're not even getting any of the story. They don't know the depth of the story. And one of the things that the very first publisher said to me, she said, this is not really a romance novel. This is a cross between a romance novel and women's fiction, which is a level up from romance writers are not the most respected writers. They call us trash writers, but but romance novels outsell any other genre. Always have. Every December the report comes out, and we're way ahead of everybody else, and that's because there are so many women who read them. But all I can do is wish you great luck with it. But make sure it's a project you love. If you don't love it, then you're probably wasting your time with it. You know. When I was writing, I couldn't wait to get back to the computer. Just couldn't wait. Every day, get in there. Because you want to know, what I was thinking is, I want to see what happened while I wasn't there, which is stupid.
That's actually what it was like for me early on. I couldn't wait to write it. I'm just now I think it's closed. I hadn't looked at it for probably 2 years and went over it. And I added little tidbits, grammatical stuff sometimes, and then in fact, I have Jason during his busy schedule to kind of peruse it, as a kind of a. That's the last one I'm letting look at it before I figure out is it publish worthy or is it one of these where, hey, if you want to read it, great. If not, I understand type of scenarios.
But remember this too: too many cooks spoil the broth.
True.
This is your project, and maybe Jason reads it and he's thinking, well, this is not what I would have written. Well, he didn't write it; you wrote it. Right. So I've never I've never shown my work in progress to anybody except my daughters, my two daughters. And I showed it to them to say, is this working? Is this doing what I think it's doing? And they make really cogent remarks, very, very fine, detailed remarks, and they've been very helpful. I have used my son because I write by the seat of my pants. I've written myself into a corner so many times with no way to get out. Simply, I've got a character who's having tea and chatting. This is a character that I killed back 2 chapters before. I forgot that I'd already killed her. So right. So mistake. Now what do I do? So what I do in those situations is I invite my son to go to brunch, just the two of us, and then I present him with my dilemma, and he always says, "Oh, well, what you could do," and he always has 3 answers, and they're all doable. But that's the only thing. I don't ask him, what do you think about the script? I don't care what anybody thinks about the script. I care what I think about the script. And I don't care if a publisher doesn't like it. I like it. And I've been fortunate enough to find publishers who like what I like and who like what I do. Not everybody does. Not everybody does. The first person I sent it to said, I love your concept, but you're starting in the wrong place. And I didn't know what she was talking about. This is good for you, Wyatt. I wrote her back. I said, I don't know what you're. I'm sorry, I'm brand new to this. What are you talking about? She said, you want to do a cold opening. And I said, I'm sorry, I don't know what a cold opening is. Could you help me out here? And she said, yes. She said, cut out the first 3 chapters. Just throw them away. And I thought, I sweated blood over those 3 chapters. I delved into my psyche. I wrote there's beautiful stuff there. And we're all doing this by computer, right? And she wrote me back and said, yes, of course, throw them away. Or if you want to save them and put them in as flashbacks somewhere in bits and pieces, you can do that. But she said, you want to jump in the middle of the action. Is this fiction you're writing, Wyatt?
Yes.
Yes, okay. You want to jump in the middle of action, just like the new James Bond films. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. The very first thing you see is not where he's in his coat saying Bond, James Bond. It's where he's fighting somebody right in the middle of the action. So she said, do that. I did it. I said to Brandan, I can't do it. He says, do it. So I did it. Sent it back out. It was published.
Nice.
That's great.
So now what I do is I cut out the first 3 chapters in my head before I ever start writing. And you'd be amazed. And also, remember, point of view. That was one of the big things that they were on my case about, was point of view. Whose point of view are you writing from? What's one of your characters' point of view, right?
Right.
Right. So they say don't have too many points of view, because they call it head hopping. They say that the reader's going, who's talking? All right, who am I? Who am I supposed to identify with? You need somebody that they have to identify with. My son and I like to read the Jack Reacher novels. And so it's always through Jack Reacher. We are Jack Reacher. We are not any of the other people. So when you have too many points of view, not that they're speaking, but that they say, oh, he looked at her and he thought, blah, blah, blah. How do we know what he thought? We are the woman. Or if we're the man, we can be the man. You can tell the story from the male point of view, but you can't then tell what the woman's thinking, because you are the man. The exception to that, and you can do this in your novels too, Wyatt, is if you want to change the POV, then you finish your last line of whoever's talking and thinking, and then you put 3 asterisks, and then you start from the other POV. And you can do that as long as it's marked in the script where the POV changes. It took me a year to learn that. They kept saying, you're head hopping, you're head hopping, head hopping. And I thought, I like it that way. I like to know what other people are thinking, but they said the readers don't. So just keep that in the back of your head. That may give you a little boost in what you're doing. I don't know.
It might.
But these are things that they just don't, they don't tell you. Nobody tells you.
Right.
So when you learn it, It's a hard lesson to learn because it takes a while for you to actually finally accede to it. But once you do, it's like saying, I give up. What do you need me to do? They tell you, and you say, fine, I do it. And I would say, don't show it to anybody. Don't show it to Jason. Don't show it to your sister. Don't show it to your wife. Don't show it to anybody. They didn't write it. You wrote it. They would have written it if they had done the same novel. It would have been different.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And I have a different writing style than him.
Yeah,
So
of course.
Yeah.
And we all do.
It's interesting the way we, we started our M.A.S.K script as kind of a way to keep in touch. Gosh, 8 years ago now, is it, Wyatt?
Like that.
He was stationed in Idaho, and I was living here in the South, and it was just a way to, we would write, we would come up with ideas. He would pick it up, put it down. I would pick it up, put it down. So I can even, when I go back now to the script, see the different styles. So it just makes sense what you're saying, that you're writing for you, don't let too many other influences into what you're trying to express. It was funny what Brendan said about talking about going to your old house and what are these people doing in my house? And I had that same experience last summer, and it kind of made me want to write a little memoir about my childhood adventures,
Mm-hmm.
and I sent that over to Wyatt thinking, is he you want I guess kind of somebody that you trust to read what you have wrote, but at the same time, like you're saying, how much input should you take from somebody else? So I mean, you've given us a whole class here on on writing, which is great. No, and maybe we'll start charging for these podcasts. But I really appreciate everything that you've said, and I know Wyatt has as well, as far as the writing aspects and stuff, because it is, for somebody like us that we're not trying to do it as a career, and obviously you probably weren't thinking of that when you first started, getting those voices in your head about
started writing it down.
I
remember Beethoven said that the reason he wrote the music is he had to get it out of his head. It was driving him crazy because it was there and he had to get it out of his head. So that's sort of what I was going through, is I had to get it out of my head and onto paper. But I'm sorry, one more thing I just thought of.
Sure.
I have 3 different publishers because each book is published by a different publisher, and I wanted to get an idea of how each one of them works so I can decide which one I would like to focus on. And consistently, I kept getting from the editors the same little sheets of paper saying, "Look at these are our rules," and they would say too many adjectives, too many adverbs, too many uses of the word fine. And what they were saying was, it took me a while to twig to it, is if you say, okay, he says, shut your stupid mouth, he said angrily. You don't have to say angrily. Shut your stupid mouth tells us that he's angry. So don't deliver it, don't spoon feed it to them. If your writing is good enough, the writing itself, the dialogue itself, will tell you. If she says, and I do this too, you can control the speed at which the reader reads your material, and that is, if you want someone to say, oh, stop doing that, I don't like it, and the other person says, oh, gee, I'm sorry, I didn't realize that I was bothering you. Now I have all those pauses in there when I speak it. How do you show that when you write it? ... Then pick it up again. ... Or an M dash sometimes. And I got in a quarrel with my first editor because she would say, you both put all these dot things, and she said, just close them up. And I wrote her back and I said, no, I'm controlling the speed at which my reader reads it. I don't want him to say, oh, I'm sorry, I didn't know that was bothering you. I want him to say, oh, and he's thinking, oh, I'm sorry, the same way you would if you were talking, right?
Sure.
So she wrote me back and said, well, I wouldn't do it that way. And I wrote back and said, you're not doing it. It's my voice. It's not your voice. You don't write the way I do. And she wrote me back and said, you're absolutely right. I'm sorry. Of course you're right. It's yours, your voice that's writing it. So think about that too, that if you want, you can speed it up, you can slow it down. It's all how you place it on the page. If you have characters speaking. Sorry. I'm sorry, Jason, but that occurred to me.
That's fine.
Great,
That's fine.
Great information. And just a slight background on us, why we trust each other. We've known each other since the 4th grade.
Oh, my goodness.
We are basically brothers. We call each other brothers. So that's just a little background for you. That's why we talk so much. Like you said, starting the script idea was a way to better our communication. But we had always talked through the years in some form or fashion. So when he's giving me his memoirs, I gave him my book. We trust each other enough that despite the writing styles, we would understand that, Jason would say, you need to cut this line out, or this is just, where are you going with this? And vice versa. So that's just an example of background on us for you. I know many of the listeners know us by now that we've been around for a while, but just so you can kind of figure out where we're at.
Well, I'm just thrilled that we have M.A.S.K fans out there who are still M.A.S.K fans. I sort of thought that the whole thing would die a quiet death as you guys grew up. But I'm amazed to find that there's so many. There is a fellow, I've forgotten his name, Williams. He's a cardiac specialist at a children's hospital in London. And he says he still has the toys and his children play with the toys. And I said to Brendan, this is an educated man. And he still has his M.A.S.K toys. So I guess we did something right.
Well,
guilty as charged.
Yeah, well, I don't know if my camera will pick it up, but a few facts.
Oh, I see. Yes.
I have to give credit to Jason. The only one I ever had was the little Condor motorbike. Yeah. On Christmases or random birthdays, he'll find something on eBay and
get it.
But it's truly been fun. Once we started this podcast, I was like, well, I got to at least have, Matt Tracker's vehicle. And then, these couple here on eBay aren't too bad. I'm going to get those. And then I essentially became a M.A.S.K toy dealer on eBay for about 2 years. And I just went overboard with it. But now it's fun because I'm in a house where I don't have like a man cave to, display all these or whatever. And I have 2 sons, and I've been able to introduce them to the series, and then now it's like, Daddy, can we get some M.A.S.K toys down to play with? And we see this too on Facebook. We posted a couple pictures this week of the dads, passing along to their sons, and I don't know. There's just something about it that has lasted. And like we were talking with Brendan about, the camaraderie of the actors just seem to have transitioned into
we're friends.
The fans.
We've been pretty close friends now all these years. We still have lunch. We still invite them from time to time. Mark lives way across town, and Doug lives way across town, because in LA everything is 2 hours away. So you can't just say, well, I'll meet you at the cafe in 15 minutes. Doesn't happen. But the only one who actually has disappeared, and we don't know quite where he is Graham. And of course, Brennan Thicke is a big grown man now, and right. I don't know where he's disappeared to either. So those two we really didn't keep in touch with, but the rest of us pretty much hang together. And and
That's really cool.
and really enjoy each other, you know, and inevitably Mark will start doing some of his impressions, and he does an impression of Miles Mayhem that is spot on. Brendan doesn't think so, but it's very good, very good, and it's sort of one of our touchstones is one of the early ones where I forgot it was the one about Magma Mole. Remember Magma Mole? And he says, "And the price has gone up. Yeah, now I want $6 million." Every single time I see Mark, I swear to you, he will say, "Oh, it's Vanessa. Well, the price has gone up."
That's awesome.
And if we happen to be out somewhere at a coffee shop or something, people think we've lost our minds. But it's okay. It's okay. He can do it. Yes, I'm sorry.
Well,
Go ahead.
That's great. It's fun to hear those little stories and stuff, and we've got the pleasure of speaking with Doug and interacting, you know, with him in person there that back in September at this convention up in Philadelphia.
Oh yes, he told us about that. Yeah.
Oh, it was a real treat just to hear his story as well, and for him to do some of the voices. And it's when we initially interviewed him, and we're hearing the voices, you know, and we're smiling ear to ear. Yeah. And then to be at the convention at the same table as him, and he's doing the voices, and you can look out in the crowd and see the smiles. I mean, it's a neat experience that we got to have there. But let me just throw a couple more questions at you, and we'll let you go. You've more than filled your time tonight.
Okay.
Really appreciate it.
Yes.
Well, you can cut and slash as much as you want.
Well, that's the beauty of digital recording. You know, we can just turn it on and let it loose, and you know, if we want to do some editing, we will. You know, I think it's been great points. Especially with the novels and everything.
I did a lot of voice work in Canada, commercials, you know, voiceover for commercials, and then dubbing foreign films into English, blah 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 blah. And one of the things that was always so difficult, you just have to finally reach a point where you can do it, is that you'll have, like, say on a commercial, you'll have the voice saying, you know, you should buy your donuts here because they're fresh and juicy and tasty. And then music plays. And then you have what they call a donut. And that's a little space of time. Maybe you may have 12 seconds that you have to put this piece of dialogue, drop it into that hole before the music starts again, because you have no control over it. And so you just have to learn, but you can't read fast. You have to learn to make it sound slow by stretching your vowels, but closing those words up tight together. It's a real technique. And I was thrilled when digital recording came in, because now I can say, you fix it. Right? It's not my problem anymore.
Right.
Oh, I'm 2 seconds long? Mush it together. Yeah, I'm short? Stretch it out. But it's not my problem anymore, so I love it. So I'm sorry, what other questions would you like to ask me?
Just a couple from our listeners we wanted to get out there just to appease them, of course. One of them was Anna from Norway, and she asked, who do you think is the best role model for women, Gloria or Vanessa, considering the fact that Gloria is a hero and Vanessa is the villain?
I think she would probably agree with me on this. We know more about Vanessa than we do about Gloria. We have scant information on Gloria. All we know is that she's one of the good guys, and she's capable, and she's bright, and I think of her as I said, about 25 years, just like a college girl, but sort of a tomboyish thing. I think that Vanessa is a better role model, because Vanessa, in my mind, drives her own life. One day she may get in an argument with Miles Mayhem and say, up your nose, I'm out of here. Or she may kill him and take over. You know, she could do that. I wouldn't put it past her. And I think that's a woman who lives her life her way. Otherwise, if she didn't, she'd be at home with an apron, you know, having babies with some nerdy guy who goes to the bank every day. But she doesn't. So she determines her own destiny, her own life, her own future. I don't know that Gloria does it. Maybe she does, but I have no information to guide me on that, and we never got any. We really didn't get any background on these characters. We had to sort of make it up as you go along. So I'd say Gloria definitely no. I would say Vanessa definitely yes.
I've always found it funny that they built up Gloria so much. She's got this background in jiu-jitsu or whatever it was.
We never see it.
We never see it in the series. So we don't see her that kind of kick butt attitude. It's more, like you say, they need her help. She's going to be there.
Yeah.
It's not. Yeah. She's kind of guided by what M.A.S.K said. Yeah.
Bill Ferris, one of our other good friends.
Yes, I know Bill. Yeah.
Yeah, he hosts MattTracker.com. He says here he asked the question: would there be something you would have liked to have changed about the characters that you voiced?
As I think off the top of my head, no. I think perhaps if you're talking about more information about them, so that I could flesh them out a little bit more. I'm not sure that would have, if we had done that, we would have had to be extremely consistent. Mm-hmm. And we were not always consistent, and it provided more interesting plot lines. So I think not having fully fleshed out characters was a benefit at the time, and maybe that's why they didn't give us any more information on. And you're right, and they never showed her doing any of the skills that she supposedly had. And I've had people say, "Oh, was she in love with Matt?" And I thought, never occurred to me. I never saw anything. Had they told us something, I could have put that into that. It could have gone in little nuances and would have been interesting, but not for kids, right? I mean, as adults, you'd say, yeah, that'd be interesting, but not for kids. Kids would be saying, "Well, ooh, ooh, ooh."
They're kissing.
Oh, ooey, yes.
Well, you've almost answered the next question from Eric, who is actually the host of BoulderHill.net. And he's just basically asking, was there any hints of the romantic relationship between like Vanessa and Brad, or even Gloria and Matt? And we've kind of noticed this too as we're going. It was a long-running joke for a while that Gloria and Matt had this secret fling on the side, because every once in a while they'd be on vacation together, or Scott would be with Matt and want to write a postcard back to Gloria, and I'm like, oh, okay, so she's kind of the motherly role, but there was never anything really explained about that. So I guess his question is more, did that kind of evolve from you, or did the writers have anything to do with that?
It's all the writers. The writers. And we never, in terms of interpretation, we never dropped any of that into our vocal performances. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. Because lacking that information, it would have been inappropriate for us to try to inject anything. Right. I mean, it would have made it more interesting for us, but it would have been, you have to keep it really. Those were designed for boys and girls, but primarily boys, who were like 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, maybe not more than maybe 11. I'm not sure, but it was more that 6, 7, 8, 9 group, and they don't like girls. So we were told by Marcia Goodman, who was our producer and director, that the only reason that there were women in this is to attract little girls, because they said girls will watch something that has girls and boys. Boys will watch something that only has boys. They don't want to watch girls. So we're only putting these girls in to pull in the girl viewers. So they have no effect whatsoever on the boys who are watching. They're totally ignored. They just watch the guys. And I hadn't thought about the psychology of it at the time, but that was their information feedback that they get from their market research, I guess. So
interesting. So
we had to keep it pretty much. Clean's not a good word for it, but antiseptic, I guess.
Mm-hmm. Kind of level-headed.
But we had all sorts of things going on though in the studio.
Well, that's something we did ask Doug at the panel, because we had come across someone had taken a video clip of a recording session for the Thundercats. And it got passed around to a few of the Thundercat fans. I happened to be one of them and shared it with Jason. They were just basically goofing off, but it was almost instantaneous. They would say their line, and then they would say, "Oh, the joke's on you," but they were actually just joking between their voice actor, not actually following the script. Did some of that go on in the studio? I think Doug a little bit.
Improving and throwing it in.
Yeah.
That went into the final production, but yeah, we had people because the studio is very small, and we were just in a circle, and this is from another session, but this will give you an idea of the kind of things that were going on. We were doing a session of another cartoon series, and we had our earphones on, and we heard a voice, and it was Doug, and he was saying, Have you heard about the what was it? Oh, what animal was it? Not a mouse, a ferret, but anyway, that Richard Gere had gone to the hospital because they remember that? Yes. And he's telling us about it over the earphones here in the studio. And I said, Who is that? I looked around and said, Oh, I see over there, it's Doug. And he's saying, Oh, do you know? That kind of stuff went on. All that time. Yes. Oh, yeah. Yeah. What was the animal that I've forgotten? Not a mouse, not a...
Gerbil.
A gerbil, thank you. It was a gerbil. Had to have a gerbil removed. Yes. Thank you. Oh, they had all kinds of stuff. And some of it was so dirty that I didn't even understand it. So I'd have to ask Brendan when we got home, what did that mean? Oh, don't you know this so-and-so and so? So I got an education.
I was going to say, now you got some material for your novel.
Yes, I do. Wow. That stuff should go. That should go into 50 Shades of Grey.
Yeah, right. We didn't really touch on, because you did M.A.S.K, and then you also did Dennis the Menace.
Yeah. Which
is another show that lasted 65 episodes.
Yeah,
I think.
Yeah, I still get residuals off that. They're small now.
So how? I mean, was it something that Deke said? Well, we loved your performance in M.A.S.K, and can we try this out? Yeah.
Yeah. Exactly. And this is something that had already been shooting, and it's not shooting, already been in process, and they lost the actor who was playing Gina, and they said we need a voice match, or the closest we can get it to a voice match, and with her inflections and her style, right? So I went in. I think there were 3 of us who auditioned, and luckily, I listened to her voice to see her character, her characteristics, and you have to also make sure it's Gina too, because Gina, right? And I did that for a year, I guess. And again, doing all different women and all different children. I had a little Japanese boy that I had to do in that one, and every time I play that back, I think, "Wow, Sharon, you did a good job with that." I wouldn't recognize that as your voice. For sure. And then I did a thing called Popples. It was sort of like little weird animal.
They're actually making a comeback.
Oh, are they? Yeah.
Yeah, Netflix is actually putting out a new series with the Popples.
I wasn't crazy, but I wanted to do My Little Pony. That I would have loved to do, but nobody ever asked me. So I didn't get to do that one. But that was fun. And then for a long time there was a producer in town who would buy Japanese cartoons, revoice them in English, and then sell them. And we got hooked in with him, and we just worked and worked and worked and worked. Right? Brendan and Doug and I somehow got hooked into it. Oh! I remember. It was Marcia Goodman. She said to us one day, and took us aside, 3 of us, and said, "These people are looking for voice actors. I recommended you if you'd like to go and see them, blah, blah, blah." That's how we did that, because I'd forgotten how we got hooked up. And that was very profitable for it. But we did about 2 years on that, too. But that was that was not the Canadian contract. Brendan was telling you we had to do the first one under,
Right.
and we also did. Brendan and I also did some of the real Ghostbusters, the cartoon.
Oh, really?
Wow.
Cartoon
I did
series.
not know that.
Yeah, because once we were with Deke, whatever Deke was producing, if they had a need for us, they could just say, "Oh, come over to here and do this one, do some of this one, do some of that one, do another one." And I had said to them one time that my mother's family is from Louisiana. They're Cajun French. And for some reason, I don't know why I told her, but I did. And so she called me and she said, I have an episode that takes place in New Orleans, and there's a girl in it, and she's Cajun. And I remembered that you said you can do your aunt's voice. And I said, yeah, I can do my aunt's voice. I said, the thing is that it's not an attractive accent, though. She's a beautiful girl. And she said she's very sexy. I said, well, this accent is not sexy at all. It's not an attractive accent, but it's real. So that's how we started doing that. And then Brendan got called in to do an Irish cop because his family is from Ireland, and he just goes in and does his father, and it's perfect.
That's neat.
Yeah, yeah. So it breeds itself.
Have there been
Very
any voices that you've done that were, I'll call it copycats of something else? Like, would we hear in your work, would we have heard maybe a trace of Vanessa or something else along the lines that's hiding out there?
Oh, I'm sure that probably that sneaks in very frequently. I don't do it consciously, but I'm sure it sneaks in there because they're all swimming around. The only conscious one I ever did was I had an audition for something, and they said, we want sort of a Lauren Bacall voice. And I thought, then why did you call me in? Because I don't have a Lauren Bacall voice. So before I went in to read, I went down here somewhere, and that may have been a little bit of Vanessa. And I thought, it's the closest I can get to Lauren Bacall. And I got a call back on it. So I thought, well, maybe Vanessa sounds like Lauren Bacall. I don't know. Didn't get the commercial, but I got a call back out of it. So it told me that if you drop it way down, it might work. But yeah, that's probably a little bit of Vanessa.
Good.
Not much of Gloria.
Right.
Not the cat. You've got to dig deep for a cuckoo clock.
Yeah, sure.
And that's got to sound right from the first. And they're, as Brendan told you, they're moving like this. You say, oh, can I do that over? No, that was good. That's fine.
Moving on.
Moving on. Always.
It's neat to hear, because I know that voice acting and just the production of it has changed so much, where you're back in the 80s and probably 90s, where you had that interaction with everybody around the round table, and now it's just more one-on-one. You're looking at a screen and, all right, this is what happens, and you go on to the next thing, where I don't know, I think that experience that you guys had was much more lasting, I guess you would say, than just staring at a screen and you're the only one in there and you don't even talk to anybody else.
You're closer to your material now.
Right.
And as a result, you lose it more than you gain. I was surprised because I usually memorize, but I did a job a year ago, and they handed me this very complicated script, but it was on an iPad, and it was rolled like this on the iPad. And I said, I can't do this. I'm a paper person. They said, we don't have it on paper. I said, okay, then put it up on the screen there, because I had a screen. They put it up on the screen, but I thought, don't give me an iPad because I'll roll too fast or I'll roll not fast enough, and it throws off my rhythm here. And that's one of the things that I find frustrating, is that you have people who call you in to do a job and they don't know what the job is. They don't know what it takes to do the job. They don't know that you need a glass of water. They don't know that you need, for me, I need to have a windsock over the microphone because I'm a pea popper. And if they think about what the actor needs, they'll have everything available there for you. But they don't know. And that's because so many of them are so young now. They just don't know. They used to be a secretary. They've now moved up to casting or producing or whatever. And they don't know what it takes to get the job done. But I'm thrilled that I don't have to worry about the donut hole anymore. All done. I'm finished for sure.
Yeah, we both have a short career in radio. So, when I was in college, I actually have a radio broadcasting degree that I've never used. But we were on the cusp of the digital era. So when Wyatt and I were actually working at our hometown radio station, we were used to those trying to fill in those holes. And, you had the manager calling you up in the middle of the night. That commercial wasn't tight enough. Come on, there was 5 seconds of dead air in there, and we know all about that kind of details and stuff. Working back then, but yeah, the whole game has changed now. So,
but don't you think it's valuable that you had that experience?
Oh yeah. It gave you an ear, and I'm sure you can attest to this. It gives me an ear, even just when we're producing the podcast here, of kind of shoring everything together, and you just have an ear for what it should sound like, rather than just let me cut out an here and an here. And what I do with the episode reviews is Wyatt and I essentially do a play-by-play of the whole episode, and then I'll throw in a clip of the actual character talking, and well, obviously, since I produce it, I think it sounds good, but we've had several compliments on that, and it's just fun to be able to do that now. Obviously, it's a lot easier. You can do it over the web, and you've got all this digital equipment now. But I don't know, there's still something about that manual process that we went through back then to get everything. It's almost like compartmentalized, like you were alluding to before, and it gets that in your brain, so you almost hear it before you put it all together. I
was DJing for some time, up until I'd say the last 3 years or so, and a lot of the basics I learned from DJing were literally from our radio station that we worked at. I have an automated player. I can let it play for me. I use it for restroom breaks or to double check the sound levels when I'm working the crowd. But most of the time, I love the actual CD player, single CD player, and being able to start the next song at the right beat or the right level and making it flow instead of that typical, there's dead air, just like you're listening to I was going to say a tape, but an iPod or whatever MP3 player nowadays, where there's still that 2 or 3 second delay, that kind of thing.
It's WKRP in Cincinnati.
That's it.
Johnny Fever. I like that part too. I like hearing that sound of whoo, 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 before it starts. If you're ready to get back and forth, I like that sound. Yeah, I think we've lost a lot. We've gained a lot, but I think we've lost some of the meat that I wouldn't mind seeing. The only thing I don't want again is that donut hole, but everything else, everything else would be fine.
Well, it's hilarious because I listen to radio stations often, typically talk shows now, but I don't know how many times I'm sitting there in my own mind. I'm hearing the station manager calling me up already saying, "There's 3 seconds of dead air. What's going on? I'm going to fire you." And I'm sitting there going, spitting it out, sometimes either in my head or even just verbally.
I did the same thing.
Saying, "Why are you this radio station, this DJ just got fired. There's 10 seconds of dead air." And here it's all just automation. The automation is kicked in, and they've not programmed it correctly, or it had a glitch, or the board op, if he happens to be there, happened to hit the wrong button. Now it's flipped out. So it's amazing what you notice, especially when you were taught on a different mechanism, or even from a different station manager that was a little more strict. In fact, I worked at a second radio station, and that station manager couldn't keep me employed, basically. What I mean by that is he was a mom and pop radio station that barely was staying afloat, and he wanted to pay me more for what I knew from working just the 1 year at my hometown radio station, because I was the only one that kind of had an idea of how to produce things basically without error. Yeah. And their broadcasters, their people were just they were haphazard. I kept sitting there shaking my head going, man, if I were at the other radio station, or if I were the station manager, this guy would be already gone, or he'd get remedial training, something. So it was just it was humbling in that regard, because station manager saw the value that the previous radio station had for me. But I've just kept it with me all these years. Even when the only time I DJ now seems to be for church venues anymore. Even when I do that, I still get people coming up to me going, "Man, do you do this for professionally or something?" And I'll say, "Well, I'm semi-retired. my military career is unfortunately more pressing, as well as now I'm a family man, so it's a little more difficult to get out and do events like I used to." But it was.
Aren't you having a great time with Jason though, doing these podcasts?
Oh, this is. I wish we could do this full time and get paid for it. Full time, and this is fun. I joke when we do the episodes, we have a blast, and it's just awesome. And now it's even better. That's probably not even the best descriptor of it, but it's humbling, unique, surreal, if there's a better word for it, that we are talking with our voice actors that we grew up with. I said it with our interview with Doug, that we would have never fathomed 30 years ago, when we were 9 or 10 years old, that we would, one, have the technology that we have today, and two, be able to use it and just essentially call you up on Skype and say, "Hey,
Hi.
Sharon, nice to meet you. Hey, thanks, you, Miss Gloria and Vanessa."
I remember you. Yes, of course.
Yeah. It's just awesome. I'm sorry.
It brings it all to you. All you have to do is call for it, and it just brings it right to you. I find that amazing that we can do that. And speaking of dead air, there was audiobooks. It's called Audio Lark, I believe is the company name. I narrated 6 of what they call their erotic books. Turned out that when I got the first script, Brendan was my sound engineer. Mm-hmm. So he's sitting here making sure that the sound is okay and everything. And he kept saying to me, you look at all this dead. When you're looking at it on the MP3, you can see, Robert. And he's saying, right. You got to tighten this up, tighten this up, tighten this up. You got to do that again. You got to come at the same level. You missed a level there because you went to get a drink of water or something like that. It was very, very helpful. But it gave me a new understanding of what the engineering is like. And I think if actors and engineers each knew what the other person's arc was that he has to follow, that he has to get the job done, I think the product would be better, faster. Mm-hmm. Definitely better and definitely faster. But we don't know, right. We just figure, okay, he does what he does and I do what I do. And but it really helped me having an actor who was also my engineer, because he could run me through things. But most essentially, he could tighten up all those places. But what I realized, and you both know this, is that if you left the room and came back, you may be starting this second bit at a level that was different from the level that you were going into it with. You got to go back right. And hit that wherever that was. And I don't know if that's something you can correct, and that the sound engineer can even correct. I think the actor has to come back and hit it. And that goes back to what I was saying before about what pitch was the computer on the right, and I have to hit that same pitch again, but I'd get playback for that. So those are all things that become big issues, and you wouldn't think so.
Right. Well, Wyatt, should we let her go?
Well,
you promised.
Yeah, we did.
We did, but it's been a real pleasure
Real treat.
To have you and Brennan come on. Wish we could do this more often. In fact, Jason and I joked we were trying like crazy to see if we could pull off a big, I'll call it a big surprise for our M.A.S.K fans by having all the voice actors come in, whether via Skype or we've been using a newer product called Hangouts.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Where we can, it's just exactly like this, except that it produces it as a live feed as we're producing it. And it was going to be my envision, and Jason had a little bit different view. I wanted to do like a big surprise, just give our fans a little email saying, you do not want to miss this episode, you will not regret it, leave it at, and then have as many as we could, you, Doug, Brennan, Graham, if we could get him, Mark Holleran, and just open it up and go, hey, I'm Matt Tracker, hey, I play Gloria, and this one big, and I almost wanted to be able to turn the camera on like the audience and go, we get to see M.A.S.K people. So
well, I can tell you this, if you did that, all hell would break loose. You get all these guys together in one room and you can't stop them. They take off.
That's awesome. I'm all for that.
Oh yeah. You'd have to get a stick and say, "Shut up, Nellie. He's talking." And the jokes would be flying, and all the dirty remarks would be flying. But it'd be fun. It would be great fun.
Oh, yeah.
Well, maybe we got a screener then, Wyatt. Sharon's the screener.
There we go.
I can't stop them though.
Once they get going.
So shall I ask Mark if he'd be interested in getting in touch with you guys?
Please, yes.
Okay.
Like I said, I messaged him a couple times on Facebook. He said he was open to it. We just haven't really set up a time, but maybe a nudge from you would be great.
Yeah, we're due to have lunch whenever I can get a time. But in the meantime, I'll chat with him, and yeah, he does. His schedule is erratic, but I'm sure he'd love to do this, and he could do all of his voices for you, and he would do it happily. Everyone he ever did, yeah. Well, you know Sly Rex, of course. That's Jack Nicholson, right?
Yeah.
And when we first started doing it, Marcia said, "We may have a copyright problem here. I don't know. We'll have to chance it and see." And as it turned out, there was never a problem. But he would do it for you. And when you see him, when you chat with him, ask him to do William Shatner.
That should be awesome.
Well, I'll write it down right now.
Yeah.
And his Miles Mayhem.
And his Miles Mayhem. Yes, his Miles Mayhem. Yeah. The price has gone up. I did find one time in one episode, I was listening to myself, and I heard Vanessa, and I thought, she sounded like Miles Mayhem there. Because instead of speaking in a deep, silky voice like this, she was getting a little rough like that. And I thought, oh no, we don't. We want to back off because she's one of those that kills you with a hairpin, and then says, I don't know what you're talking about. But it's just the fact that we work together and it sort of begins to rub off on each other. Yeah, but you'll have a great time with them. And if you ever want everybody together and you can pull it off, let us know.
We will. We'll try.
Excellent.
Because we'll always have our computer.
True.
So will we.
Yeah.
Yep. Okay, Wyatt. Well, let's go ahead and wrap it up. And again, we thank you for your time. And
you're absolutely welcome.
It was a real blast, as Wyatt always says, chatting and all your insight. It's amazing to me that we can remember, watching the show, and again, it's amazing that the show was that impactful that you guys can just basically jog your memory 30 years later, and it seems like it was yesterday.
It does.
But,
it seems about 10 years ago to me.
Yeah.
It's about 10 years ago, something like maybe a little less, but about 10. And it's not. It's 30.
Right,
and I remember when I was a kid hearing my parents say, "Well, 20 years ago," and I thought, 20 years ago, that's forever. That's such a long time. And now 30 years has passed and it seems like 10. So I guess that's how our lives go. So I'll tell you this: call me if you need me.
Great.
Appreciate it.
Well, thank you again, and we'll go ahead and sign off. We appreciate everybody listening, and of course for Sharon and Brennan to come on and give their memories and everything they have tonight. It was a real treat. And
thank you, Sharon, very much for being on our MASKast. Please extend that to Brennan, Mr. Mouth Mayhem himself.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, thank you all for listening to MASKast.